Hello, everybody. This is Tim Heaney from RotoWire. Sorry if you were watching that last stream. It was a little bit of a technical difficulty there, so it was cut off. But I'm going to run it from the top here because I like all of you. So the big news I'm chiming in for with fantasy baseball, JT Realmuto, one of the top, if not the top catchers in Major League Baseball, was traded from the rebuilding Miami Marlins to the Philadelphia Phillies, who seem to be making some waves this offseason. It might not be done. We'll see about that. But first off, I want to get to the fantasy value of JT Realmuto here. Of course, going from Miami's lineup and Marlins Park to the Phillies lineup and Citizens Bank Park, huge upgrades. Of course, he was already arguably the top fantasy catcher with that wretched team that he was just on. But the run and RBI opportunities are definitely going to be going up here. I'm guessing he's going to hit somewhere in the middle of this order, maybe around 4th, 5th, or 6th, somewhere there. You know, it's a lot of good names to drive in. He's got Rhys Hoskins there. He's got Cesar Hernandez, underrated guy, Maikel Franco, Odubel Herrera, and Andrew McCutchen, probably the top 2 hitters in that lineup. And, of course, depending on how the righty-lefty platoon stuff works out, still a pretty good group of people there to – provide him some opportunities to get all that stuff. So, does this make him the unquestioned number 1 fantasy catcher? I could see it. More so, I think, in batting average and points leagues. If it's Roto, probably still Roto as well. Maybe in OBP leagues, maybe it might be Gary Sanchez because the power difference is great. Realmuto, should be stealing more bases maybe. Hasn't really had that opportunity because he stole 8 or more in every year from 2015 to 2017. Still just 27 years old. That's a good setup there for him to really have those legs to at least steal 5 or 10. And I think that makes a difference with catching because the pool is so crappy. It kind of separates him along with his other great attributes from the pool. I could see Sanchez, if he's going cheaper, being the better return, but I think Realmuto has the best potential to be the number 1 catcher because if he does have that stolen base in uptick a little bit there. So his defense, not as promising for the most part. I mean, I will counteract that by saying that he is one of the best catchers at throwing out would-be base stealers. I think he was 2nd or 3rd in qualified catchers in caught stealing percentage last year. So that's a big deal there. But the pitching in Philadelphia, not the greatest. Not much depth there. And I think that he's actually really overrated as a pitch framer. His metrics actually don't have him ranked that high in a lot of the categories, like plus RAA plus, some of the other advanced stuff there, like plus calls percentage. A lot of these you can find on StatCorner.com. The catcher report there is really handy for that sort of thing, but not a very helpful catcher when it comes to pitchers. He might not be able to kind of build up the likes of Nick Pivetta or Zach Eflin, or the guys that are kind of at the back end of that rotation that might need a little bit of that help. But overall, for fantasy purposes, we're looking at offense here, and I think Realmuto still has a strong case to be the number 1 catcher drafted in fantasy. Now, his ADP, I'm going to look up his ADP actually a little bit right now. That looks like it's going to be about, let's see. Realmuto probably is being taken as the number 1 catcher, I would imagine. If not, like I said, if not Sanchez. It's probably somewhere around the 60s, I'm guessing, is the ADP in most leagues. We're looking at NFBC style for those of you who play in those formats here. Realmuto is the number 2 catcher, actually. No, he's number 1 in NFBC. Average pick 57. So, 15-team league, that's, what is it going to be? 4th round, late 4th round. If you want to, I'm not a big guy on paying for positions that don't have much replacement value, and I think the top catchers definitely don't have that because, if you're in like a 15-team league, especially 2 catcher league, and one of those guys, Realmuto or Sanchez, goes down, you pay around 3, round 4 price for them. What are you going to find? You're not going to find anywhere close to the replacement value for stats on the waiver wire. So if you feel comfortable doing that, go for it. I do think there's a bigger case this year because power is so redundant among every other position. You can easily find a first baseman here and there. That the catcher, if you want to get ahead and hope that they don't get injured, that's a good statistical, logical argument to make for that. But it really depends on the league, depends on the format. Anyway, moving on to what the what the Marlins got back in that deal. The jewel of that for them was pitching prospect Sixto Sanchez. When healthy, easy 100 miles an hour, one of the top ranked pitching prospects in baseball for sure. Has gone through some health issues recently, though. I think he had an elbow inflammation last year, and he has a collarbone injury he's working through right now. So I think Sanchez might not have much of a chance to make a lot of strides this year. He might not even reach the majors this year. I'm guessing it's going to be a cup of coffee, if nothing else, in September or something, because I'm sure then the Marlins are not going to want to rush him back, especially since they're not going to rush him back because, they're not playing for 2019. They might not even be playing for 2020. So, those in fantasy dynasty leagues that own him, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, I think. I don't think the Marlins will bring him up so soon. I think they'll want to let him develop there, make sure he's healthy, make sure his velocity is back up, that sort of thing. You'll probably see Sandy Alcantara before you'll see Sanchez in the major leagues. Very similar attributes, though. I think Sanchez probably has a little more potential to be a starter because there's a better pitch mix and the controls there a little bit better. But, got to watch out for the same pitfalls as Alcantara. Once a great prospect now, control issues, a little bit of a lack of confidence that he's even going to be a full-time starting pitcher. But the Marlins continuing to pile up those nice, attractive young arms that have some upside, and they have nothing else to think about but upside at this point. That kind of brings me to a little bit someone that can actually help them more in the present. It's Jorge Alfaro, the catcher that they got in exchange from the Marlins to replace Realmuto. Not a bad get, to be honest, if you're just kind of looking for someone for the long term. Still, he's a guy that can step in right away. He will step in right away. He's got a nice throwing arm, not great at throwing out runners right now, but Alfaro is only 25 years old, and a lot of catchers like that do take a little bit of time to learn. I think there's a lot of offensive upside here, even with the downgrade in ballpark in his new home base there. Alfaro strikes out a lot, but he also makes a lot of hard contact. The power is definitely there for a 20-homer season. Maybe not this year, but in subsequent seasons. I think that there's a lot to like about that exit velocity metrics that, Statcast.com has him as, I think, a top 50 in a lot of the metrics there with exit velocity and stuff like that. So very much a guy that in dynasty leagues you could probably buy low a bit right now because he does have that the trade really just kind of strips a lot of his luster for 2019. But I still think he's a top 20 catcher for this year, if not top 15. I think there's the opportunity. It's just about solidified now for him to play just about 4 or 5 times a week. So that's a good baseline if you're kind of waiting on the position in deeper mixed leagues. So I think I'll still probably look in his direction a couple of times when I'm waiting at the position. I think that you're not getting a stolen base or anything from him. Excuse me, but I think you'll easily get 15 to 20 homers out of him. Maybe a 260, 270 batting average, and probably more if all breaks loose there. But you got to watch out for the big strikeouts. Excuse me. And finally, Will Stewart, not actually on our top 400 prospects rankings or our top 20 team rankings on RotoWire. So you'll wait for more of the RotoWire analysis on him there. Which, if you haven't joined RotoWire yet, go to rotowire.com/free. You can try us free for 10 days. You can get our full fantasy baseball coverage there. Our draft kit for fantasy baseball is still in the swing of things right now. We just released our PC and Mac draft software. You can download that if you're a subscriber. Can help you along, kind of keep track of your drafting and stuff like that. We have our sleepers list. We have our top 400 prospects, as I mentioned before, from James Anderson. We have a mock draft tool that we just kind of revamped this year. You can kind of do some practice drafts there, and keep track of all the news. I'll probably be checking back in if and when Bryce Harper signs, and Manny Machado and Craig Kimbrell, all that. So definitely want to keep doing more of these live streams with baseball season here. So thanks for joining. This is Tim Heaney from RotoWire. See you soon.